Luke Johnson joins us right now. He is co-host of the SuperTalk Eagle Hour on SuperTalk Hattiesburg and SuperTalk Laurel. A big series coming up this weekend for the Southern Miss baseball team. They are on the road in Conway, South Carolina. Left early this morning, going to start a 3-game series tomorrow against Coastal Carolina, the Chanticleers. And Luke, this is kind of what we've been waiting for, right? The anticipation, especially in baseball, about being in the SunBelt Conference was about this, right? It was about facing really good teams in high-leverage series. It kind of has an old Southern Miss Rice feel to it, although different geographic part of the country. This is fun, man.
It really is, and that's exactly how I would describe it. I mean, you almost wish that Coastal was in the West because you knew you were going to get this with Louisiana. South Alabama's a little off this year, but, I mean, Texas State, great program. But yeah, as far as it feels like these are the two powers, and so both of them having a great year RPI-wise. And so both top 25, both top, Southern's 21, so it's effectively top 20 RPI teams, and it's the battle for the first place in the SunBelt. So it's what you want, and so I think apart from that first time they've met, so there's just a lot of unique stories, and exactly this is what you wanted in a top 5 RPI conference in the country in baseball.
I was looking at the pitching matchups, and look, Coastal's a good team. They're a good team at home, ranked as high as number 8. But when you start looking at Tanner Hall against Matthew Potok in Game 1, Hall's numbers are better. Billy Oldham against Jacob Morrison in Game 2, Oldham's numbers are better. Not sure who Southern's going to start on Sunday for Game 3. I don't know if that'll be Nico Mazza, what direction they'll ultimately go, but it does feel like, at least based on numbers, there's a little bit of an advantage for Southern Miss here this weekend.
Well, part of the reason that Coastal has won so many games, and like you mentioned, you just look on paper with their pitching staff, they got a 6.18 ERA as a staff. But when you look at what they're doing, I mean, offensively, 4th in the country in scoring, right under 10 runs a game, 9.8, 6th in slugging percentage, 8th in total runs. They're batting .318 as a team. I don't know if you've looked at their statistics, but man, they have the killer bees. They have 7 dudes on their team with the last name B. It's like a law firm. You can just rattle them off, and they're all batting 300 plus. 67 home runs. So even though their team ERA is high, it's been because they have scored a lot of runs, and so that's what the key is going to be. I mean, Southern Miss is not going to outmuscle Coastal Carolina, but they got to play clean baseball on defense. And kind of what I'm looking at, we talked to Chad Kaye today and talked to Joe Katz, who's the play-by-play voice for the Chanticleers yesterday, and kind of what came up out of those is you saw what James Madison, the approach they took against Tanner last weekend. And you wonder if that's going to be the approach that people take from now on against him, swinging very, very early in the count. And I think that Coastal poses more of a challenge because they are so powerful at the plate.
It's a great ballpark, too. They play in Springbrook Stadium. It opened in 2016, I think, which was that the year before, the year after? I guess it was the year after they won the national championship. And I was there for a regional a few years ago. It's incredible. They got the teal outfield wall, and they've got this really cool boardwalk that goes all the way around the outfield. That's a really good environment. And, in terms of capacity, it's kind of comparable to Pete Taylor Park. A little over 5,000 is what they can squeeze in there. And they care about baseball. It really is crazy, Luke, when you think about it, to realize that this is a team that won a national championship in baseball. It's rare, right, that we see a team like that rises all the way up and is able to take the trophy at the end of the year from a non-Power 5 league. But it's also kind of what gives you this hope and optimism, I would think, from a Southern Miss perspective. I mean, never mind the fact that 2 teams that you're competitive with in your own state have won national championships in recent years, but also a team that you're now a conference mate with. in this new look SunBelt has won a title in the not too distant past.
Yeah, so they did win it in 2016, and just going back to Chad Kaye, who's been the SEC last couple of years, he made the statement that Coastal, that's the perception, is that Coastal is just like Southern Miss. I mean that's it. You will not find two programs that they're very, very similar for a lot of reasons. Coach Gilmore's been there close to 30 years. There's been longevity in both positions. There's been regional appearances, of course, Coastal winning it all. But yeah, it is. They are remarkably similar in a lot of ways. And for them both to be in the same conference with so much on the line this week, I think you guys may have said it earlier in the week. I mean, this is Southern Miss's chance to take the steering wheel back on a season where you kind of look and you feel like they may have been down a little bit. But here they are. I mean, still knocking on the door to possibly host if they take care of business.
What did you make of the D1 baseball projections yesterday that had Southern Miss as a 2 seed in Gainesville?
I mean, that's how the Eagles got to Omaha the first time. So I guess bring it if if it works out that way. But yeah, there'd be a whole lot of storylines going into that one. That one for sure. Yeah, I think it's fun to project. But the way that the SunBelt baseball is kind of what we saw in basketball too. Yeah, Coastal and Southern are at the top, but man, there's a whole bunch of good teams like 1 game back, 2 games back, and you kind of feel like it still may go down to the wire, and you may have a regular season champ go down, and I think this is I think very easily this is a lock for a 3-team bid and possibly a 4-team depending on what happens down the stretch.
Well, I'm glad you said that because that's what I was going to ask you next. I mean, how many teams do you think when it's all said and done, we get to Memorial Day from the SunBelt are announced as participants? Obviously, you've got the automatic qualifier for whoever wins the tournament, but after that, it's who else?
Yeah, I mean, Georgia Southern's down. They're in the top 75, but they're down. Louisiana, you got to hope they kind of finish a little stronger. They're at 64. But, I mean, Old Dominion at 48, Troy at 35, and then Southern and Coastal. So, it depends on what happens, what some teams do to boost the RPI. They did have as many as 9 teams kind of in the top 90. And of course, this is a dynamic that Southern Miss has never had before with the RPI, is that they've never really had the opportunity to play a team with this high RPI middle of the season and to basically not their conference. They'll get hurt when they play Archie State and a few of the midweeks. But, I mean, the opportunity relatively to hold RPI a little better than what they were able to do in Conference USA.
You concerned about the midweeks, the midweek losses?
The Alabama one was bad. I mean, Tuesday night, you had 9 teams in the top 25 that got beat.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, Southern Miss is 3-5. But I think they're at a place they can't afford to lose the Tulane coming up. Tulane's just the RPI so bad. But with the loss of Matt Adams, you're kind of putting all your stock in the weekend. And that's why, Armistead only threw 3 innings. He was the guy that when you moved Oldham to the weekend, you felt like he'd be your midweek starter. Well, he's got to be long relief. And I think that's probably why you are a TBA on Sunday. Do they go with Mazza? Do they start Armistead? And I think it's going to be, do they have to use Armistead in long relief either on Friday or Saturday? Hopefully not on Friday. Tanner will be Tanner. But yeah, to your point, it is kind of where you are right now. You're 3-5, but you are still winning weekend series, and so that's far more important.
Do you know anything, any updates, any whispers that you've heard about Matt Adams in terms of prognosis?
Same stuff. I mean, what we're being told, I think Coach Perry told y'all too, it's just a rehab, and it's really, a timetable on Matt, see how he feels and how he responds to treatment.
Okay. Well, certainly for Southern Miss, we'll hope that means he is back on the mound in the not-too-distant future. Big weekend coming up. Game 1, 5 o'clock Central tomorrow. You, of course, will get that on the Southern Miss Radio Network. And then how do people watch that? Is it ESPN Plus?
Yeah, everything SunBelt's ESPN Plus. That's the beauty of the SunBelt.
There you go. So you'll be able to watch this weekend from Springbrook Stadium in Conway, South Carolina, just up the road or down the road a bit from Myrtle Beach. Thanks, Luke.
All right, Richard, y'all have a great week. See you later.
You as well. Luke Johnson from the